June 23rd, 2007, in a small town, in a small church in Mississippi, a guy married the girl of his dreams. As he stood there gazing down the aisle at a large antique door, he began to think to himself, how am I going to do this? Am I going to be able to handle another life? I'm only 20 years old. Maybe I've made a mistake. And then out of nowhere, that door that seemed so far away, it opened up, and he saw her, the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Immediately he remembered why he was there. He noticed that his heart was beating, that his palms were sweating. That nervousness that he felt, it now became an excitement. He was ready to leap from where he stood. He was ready to take her hand and begin their life together. As it began to get lost in her eyes, all the distractions from that day became numb. Selfishness became selflessness. That day was now for her. This was the love that he knew. This is the love that he always wanted. And it seemed that not a thing on earth would be able to tear it apart. But only a mere 3 years later, real life hit. And it hit hard. That selflessness that he had felt at the altar, it now became a constant state of begging. He had made mistakes. He had become selfish. It was as if he had backed a concrete truck of emotion, just pouring it over her heart, making it hard, where she never wanted to hear him, even if he was truly remorseful. The love that he knew and that he wanted only 3 years earlier had been trampled as if it was dirt on the ground. May the 5th, 2010, in a small house, in a small town in Mississippi, that man lost the girl of his dreams. You've heard me narrate this story plenty of times, whether it be in a video campaign ad or through a storytelling, maybe in a book or on a blog. What I haven't told you about that story is, the man in the story is me. My name is Bryan. I'm 25 years old, and I'm divorced. You would think the way that I lived whenever I married my wife, you would think that I had been raised in a horrible household, not taught how to treat a woman, not taught how to live. You would think that my life was raised without a father that cared. But that's not true. I was raised in a Christian household. My father was a great father. He's my hero. He is my mentor. I was raised in ministry. I was a pastor. I was a youth pastor. I led worship. I did things for the Lord. I knew from a young age that God had called me to do His work. But somehow I allowed my priorities to run away. Not really run away. I can't even say that. I would say that I ran my priorities away. I was a man standing at the door with a shotgun making them leave. When I met my wife, when we were dating, I remember one day I had taken her home. This was in the early stages of our dating, and I just remember the one thing that she told me, as I'm still in church at this time and I'm still leading worship and still leading our youth. I remember she had told me, Bryan, I want you to know that I know the cool thing to do in high school, and I know the thing that kids are doing is have sex, and people feel like that makes you closer, but I want you to know, Bryan, that I want to wait till I'm married to have sex. And me, like a young guy trying to impress this girl and trying to make her like me even more, I said, I agree completely. I feel the exact same way. 4 months later, we were having sex. But in that 4 months, we weren't married. I had taken from this woman something that she would never get back. Yeah, sure, granted that a few years later we would end up married together. And the fact is that we gave ourselves to each other and only each other at the time, but that still doesn't matter. I took something from her, a promise that she made to herself. I took it from her, and I had robbed it from her. So throughout our dating, before we even got married, we were having sex quite often, completely killing any kind of new experience that we would experience as a newlywed couple. By the time we got to where we were married, it was nothing new. It was just something that we had already been doing. So it got old quick, and it caused problems in our marriage, and I jumped straight into the thing of pornography, which ruined me from a teenage age anyways. I remember hearing a friend at school tell me, "Bryan, you need to check this website out, man. It's got naked girls on it." My curiosity piqued. I was like, okay, cool. So I went home and I checked it out. I remember we had dial-up connection. It was when internet first came out, and I went to my father and I said, "Dad, I want to check out some baseball players online. I want to look at some baseball stuff." My dad said, "Cool." So I got online and I just looked at tons and tons of pornography. I remember when my curfew ended, my father came and ran across the history and saw everything. And I remember the one thing that he told me, he said, "Bryan, do you not realize that the girl in this picture, the girl in this video, it's someone's mother, it's someone's wife, it's someone's sister, it's someone's daughter. Would you want someone looking at your sister or your mother that way?" Oh, I was so stricken with guilt and remorse. But it didn't take long after that I still allowed the temptation to transform me, that I succumbed to that temptation. I continued to look at pornography all through my teenage years, up until when I got married, and I continued to look at it. I remember my wife telling me, "Bryan, when you look at that stuff, it degrades me. It makes me feel as if you're comparing me to them." And I'm just straight up, "No, Emily, it's not that. It's not like I'm trying to degrade you or compare you to them at all. But the truth is I was. Even if I didn't think it, it was that. Because I would go to her in our bedroom and say, 'Hey, let's try this. I saw this on this. Let's do that.' All in all, every time I did that, completely tearing down her emotions and breaking her heart to pieces. Eventually, I allowed this corruption, this immorality that I allowed to pour in my heart to take over me. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And I believe that 100%. That everything I poured into my heart, it was completely letting itself out. Through my temper, I didn't get the way I want, the things I want. I didn't get my way. So I let it come out of me in my anger. Breaking things. Putting holes in the wall. Breaking all of her things. Just scaring her, trying to intimidate her and to do my will, to do my way. You know, in Ephesians it says, "Wives, submit to your husbands." But it never once says, "Husbands, force your wives to submit." It actually says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church." And thinking about it now, Christ doesn't force us to love him. He doesn't force us to submit to him. So if we're supposed to love our wives like Christ loves the church, then we need to allow them to make the choice of submission, just like Christ does us.